Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Mike McDowd. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a trivia question. Today's trivia theme is miscellaneous trivia. In the next segment, we're going to introduce a special guest who hadn't been on our show for about 9 years, and he's just as handsome as he was back then because we're recording this for both audio and video. Mike, you invited him because you happen to know him. Who's going to be our guest in the next segment?
Famous basketball player from the great state of, I think he played for the Boston Celtics. No. Great guy. We've known him for a number of years. Wonderful writer, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area. His name is Dave Albee. He was a longtime columnist for the Marin Independent Journal, aka the Marin IJ. But the guy's scope of knowledge is vast and wide. He's a heck of a nice guy. He's got a strange accent, but other than that, he's okay.
All right. When we come back, also we will talk a little basketball. We got the Final Four: Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. Also, kind of curious. The NFL just voted no vote on the tush push, and I thought, you know what? Just let them do what they need to do. If you want to, give someone a hand up, right? Just let them do what they need to do. But I thought it was interesting. The overtime rules will now allow each team to have an offensive possession, even if the other team scores a touchdown, which I kind of like. I like that. And then also touchbacks will now go on the 35-yard line versus the 30-yard line. So we should have less boring touchbacks predicted. All right. Audience, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. When we come right back, Dave Albee will be with us, and our other co-host, Russ Jackman, will also be with us. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with Mike McDowd and Russell Jackman, and our special guest, sports columnist and author Dave Albee from our hometown here in Marin County. And Mike, you wanted Dave to come on because there's a couple of special things you wanted to go over.
Is that a fact? No, it's true. It's true. I mean, first of all, Dave's just a good guy, and he knows the world of sports inside and out. He covered the game the sports game as being a writer. I mean, not only that, he's got so much knowledge and background, and he's talented. He's gifted. He just came out with a new book, The Last One Out of Town, Turn Out the Lights. I don't know if he stole that title from a Journey song, but it sure sounds like it.
What's that other song? Turn out the lights, the party.
No, Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah. I see some similarities there. But Dave wrote this book, and we welcome Dave. Of course, Dave, as you know, this show goes, I like to say, border to border, coast to coast, and around the world with our U.S. military. So I really want you to talk about your book because it would be akin to much like the movie Hoosiers, that small town Americana, that love, that allure that people don't. I mean, listen, if you lived in a two-light stoplight town, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So paint the picture. This story, you covered this high school team, but it's more than a story for you. It really changed your life, didn't it?
It's very personal, and yes, it is. My hometown is a two-stop traffic stop town. By the way, it's Dover, Foxcroft, Maine. If you would look at a map of Maine and put your finger right in the middle of the state, that's where Dover, Foxcroft is. It's near Bangor. But yes, this book was very personal to me. I'm a graduate of Foxcroft Academy in 1972. And they had a real good basketball team coming up. And in 1973, I went to a radio broadcasting school in Boston thinking I was going to become the next Johnny Most. That didn't happen. So I ended up coming home back to Dover, Foxcroft, and went to work to pay off my college loan, went to work at a local A&P grocery store, Atlantic and Pacific. It's basically the Safeway of Maine at the time anyways. So this is a town of about 3,000 people. And I got to know this sports editor came to town. Her name was Ree Miller, and she was the sports editor of the local weekly newspaper, the Piscataqua Observer. And she would come in once a week to get her groceries, and I struck up a conversation with her each week. And it was the beginning of the basketball season, the 1973-74 season. And I knew we had a real good basketball team coming. We had a player named Kevin Nelson, who wound up in Dover Foxcroft from a school consolidation we can talk about later. But I knew they were going to probably have the best basketball team in 20 years. And they opened up the season against Orono, who was the defending state champions. So it was a big game, and I saw her in the store before the game, and I went up to her and I said, Rhea, are you going to the big game on Saturday night? And she says, well, no, I don't know a lot about basketball. And for whatever reason, I said to her, would you like me to go to the game? So she says, sure, go ahead. So I drive down to Orono on a Saturday night, cover the game. On Sunday, I come home, I write out the game story longhand because I didn't have a typewriter, didn't know how to use a typewriter. So I write out the game story on Sunday. On Monday, I turn it into the Piscataquis Observer. And on Tuesday, the editor-publisher of the Piscataquis Observer calls me up on the phone and offers me a full-time job. That's how my sports writing career started. Voila.
It sounds much like the greats quarterback for the one time, I guess it was the, I want to call him the St. Louis team, the Rams, Kurt Warner. He was bagging groceries and, dreams come true. And, tell us about, again, we speak to a vast audience. So what is the connection of this book to, because if you live it in your hometown,
right.
A lot of people say, so, what's the connection to I guess Americana, really?
Well, at that time, we're talking late 60s, early 70s. And it's not in a small town, any small town, especially in Maine, in the wintertime, basically your entertainment, your whole identity revolves around the local high school basketball team. And that's what it sort of was. And for years, Foxcroft did not have a very good basketball team, didn't have a very good tradition. And the only reason they started getting good was because they had a controversial school district consolidation in 1969. In 1968, Monson Academy won a Maine small school championship, town of about 600 people. And the next year, within weeks of winning that state championship, there's this controversial vote to consolidate with Foxcroft Academy. But what that meant was that Monson Academy would have to close its school. And they had a tremendous basketball tradition. Their whole town revolved around that basketball team. That bonded people together. And all of a sudden they vote, and it was very close, obviously, but the total vote basically voted for the consolidation. So they closed the school and they bused all the students down to Dover Foxcroft, 20 miles away. That's how the whole thing started with this. And what happened was, the only reason that Foxcroft ended up winning the state championship in 1975 was because of this kid named Kevin Nelson, who grew up in Southeast Monson. And Southeast Monson has a population of about 50. And Kevin ended up being bused down to Dover Foxcroft. At the time that they won the state championship in 1968, he was 5'11" as a fifth grader. He grew to be 6'8". He became essentially the Cooper Flag of Maine in that era. I mean, he grew from this, again, small town, 50 people in town. He winds up in 1975 being the Maine State Basketball Player of the Year and leads him to an undefeated season. And it's the only state basketball championship that Foxcroft Academy has ever won in its 200-year history.
I had a friend who was 5'11" and in fifth grade, and he was really good at basketball. He never grew.
Oh, yeah.
Never grew past it. Yeah. And he was still a very good basketball player, but just unfortunately couldn't do it. It's funny you mentioned about how you get started in sports writing, and I had like my break, so to speak, in radio because I got invited to be a guest on KNBR for a business show, and that's our major sports station in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the guy who had me on liked what I had to say, and he just said, "Hey, I need some help here. Why don't you help co-host it with me?" Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It was a fluke. And again, what if I said no, or what if she had said no? what if they weren't a good team? I wouldn't have a reason to go to the game, and all sort of stars align type thing.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
go from Maine to Colorado to Illinois to California. That was,
Yeah, I was going to ask you. We have about a minute before our break. I was going to ask you, how did you eventually go from Maine all the way west to California, where you're at?
My brother was working in Colorado Springs and Fort Carson at the time, and he invited me out there, and I fell in love with the place, and wound up deciding that I wanted to go back to school in journalism and get my degree, because I'd never had a degree. And wound up with my first wife and I, and she was 6 months pregnant, and our dog, and we packed up behind all of our belongings in a 29-foot U-Haul with our Chevy Vegas station wagon in the back of the U-Haul, and drove all the way to Colorado. And I worked for 2 newspapers in Colorado, and then went for a Gannett newspaper in Rockville, Illinois, and transferred out to Marin. That's how I got out here through a Gannett newspaper.
Wow. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys ready for our first trivia question? This one happens to deal with music, and I'll give you a hint. It's this group was, I'm pretty sure there was in the 1970s. Okay. And just as a reminder, Dave, if you know the answer, don't say anything yet. When we come back from the break, we'll see if you can, because we want to
be in my wheelhouse.
This could be. Well, you probably know this one. Which musical band popularized the punk genre in the U.S.? And again, the 1970s is when we're talking here. I see question mark on your face. Okay, yeah, you'll know the group when I say it.
I think I know.
You think you know? Okay, which musical band popularized the punk genre in the U.S.? All right. Email Edward at Sports Econ 101 the answer to that question. We'll see if the audience knows the answer. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We will be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowd, Russell Jackman, and our special guest, Dave Albee. All right, first trivia question. Which musical band popularized the punk genre in the U.S.?
Now, when you say in the U.S., are they an English band?
You know, that's a good question. I
That's
don't know. It might be.
Are you saying the first American punk band? I guess that's my question.
Let's see what
That's
your
not
answer
who
is.
I have in mind.
Okay, I'd say the Sex Pistols.
So,
That's what I would.
you know,
That was if it was an English band. That's what I would say. Yes.
Okay, so then I'm going to say that I don't think this is an English band.
Okay, then it's the Clash.
I was going to go with the Clash.
No, I think they were before the Clash.
Really?
So
Can I
and there
guess?
was a movie that I remember. There was a movie, high school something, and these guys were like there was a really cute little girl.
Excuse me. I'm probably wrong. Is it the Ramones?
That's what I guess.
the
Yes,
Ramones.
that's what I was going to guess. Yes.
Good job. Okay.
Good. Yep.
I think the Sex Pistols predate the
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of here's the tough part. When I get these trivia questions, I don't do that much extra checking because I mean, a couple of times I've like looked at it, it's like, wait a minute, I know for sure something's wrong. So I go, no, I'm going to throw that one out there. All right. So we are in the studio, the Zoom studio here with Dave Albee, who is now in the North Bay of California.
Yep.
All right. And so whatever happened with Kevin Nelson?
Well, Kevin wound up becoming, he was recruited heavily. Boston College really was heavy on him, wanted him to play. And this is before Boston College was in the formation of the Big East. And Boston College really wanted him. But I think he really wanted to stay closer to home. He was very close with his parents and his brother, who was in my class. And he wound up being actually the very first in-state recruit at the University of Maine to get an athletic scholarship, a basketball scholarship. The first in-state thing. So this was in 1975. He played for Skip Chappelle, who's a legendary basketball coach back in Maine.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, did he go past college?
He did not go past college. No.
Okay.
He had a pretty good career. He had a pretty good career at Maine. I think he's 1 or 2 still in best field goal percentage. In University of Maine history, and he's in the top 10 in rebounding. He scored 1,000 points. and had a real good career there. A nice career, and that was a different period of time, because at that period of time in the late '60s, Maine was playing teams like UMass, who had Julius Erving played for UMass. He was playing Econ before Econ became Econ. One of the players who ended up playing for Skip Chappelle at Maine is now an NBA coach, Rick Carlisle. Started out at the University of Maine, and then Rick transferred from the University of Maine to Virginia and went to the Final Four with Virginia and Ralph Sampson. And Rick is now coaching in Indiana, and he and Skip Chappelle are still in constant communication, texting back and forth.
Well, that's fun. So now, go ahead.
When you think of Dr. James Naismith, who invented the great game with the peach basket and everything, Maine often comes to my mind, all the legendary players, which I don't know who that would be. I mean, when you think of college basketball, you think Black Bears. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It's
Black Bears. Yeah.
Black Bears have done, I don't know anything, but I got to ask you a question, and it's a good one. How many great college basketball players even come from the state of Maine? Do we have any NBA players? I have no clue.
There's not that many. In fact, that's the phenomenon with Cooper Flagg right now. It's because Cooper's from Newport, Maine, which is about 27 miles from Dover Foxcroft. In fact, Cooper Flagg's grandfather, Dan Bowman, actually played against this Foxcroft Academy team that's in the book, the 1975 championship. He played against them in 1973. In 1974, he was a two-time All-Penguins League basketball player at Nokomis. I actually faced him in baseball, Dan Bowman. I think he struck me out because that's pretty much what everybody did who pitched to me in baseball.
When you make me feel old.
I know, that's the thing. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
And their grandfather played, and I go, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not that much younger than there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite? Now, Dave, you were very well known. I don't know how well known you are around the country, but in the Bay Area, you were very well known. What was one of your favorite stories to cover?
Oh boy! When I was in the Bay Area, I would say covering Stanford at the Final Four in 1998, which was in San Antonio, ironically. That was one of my favorite things because I had covered the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I had covered the A's and the Giants in the World Series, but the feeling of going to a Final Four is unmatched. And the reason I say that is because a World Series and a Super Bowl are very much corporate minded, and you see it's celebrities being seen and people coming in from out of town. You go to a Final Four, it's basketball people, it's basketball fans. They get their tickets a year in advance, and it's all about basketball. I remember sitting at a bar with Kentucky fans and seeing how incredibly passionate they were. But that's sort of the scene it was all right. You go around and all you see is the school colors of the four teams that are in the Final Four. And that was looking at. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they still hate Christian Laettner.
Yes.
Grant Hill.
That's another thing that's funny about Maine. I don't think Maine was really a Duke fan until Cooper Flagg went to Duke, and now it's like the whole state's wearing blue.
Interesting.
So Dave, 98 Stanford. Who was that? Lopez brothers, Matson. Who was on that team?
No, that was before them. This was Arthur Lee was the guard. Chris Reams.
Arthur Lee. Okay.
Mark Madsen was on that team. Mad Dog, who's now coaching at Cal. Peter Sauer was on that team. Was the other?
Right.
Was the other? Right. Tim Young was a 7-foot center. That's a pretty good team. That was Mike Montgomery's team, and that was before Casey Jacobson wound up there.
Yeah, and who didn't love Mark Madsen? Because I remember when he won an NBA championship just a couple years later with the Lakers. I saw this great white woman guy dancing like this out on the stage. It cracked me about when I was a sports anchor in the Bay Area. I used that clip and I started dancing with the anchor because Madsen was just notoriously a bad dancer. And you love him. You love him. And in fact, Dave, I think it's fair to say that's probably the last really good Stanford team. That's last.
Well, they had some pretty good teams, Mike. They had some pretty good teams after there. I remember covering them in Birmingham in the section like 2 years later. think it was Casey Jacobson's freshman year. They went down there and they were the number 1 seed, but they got shipped to the South. So they're playing in Birmingham, but they got beaten the second round by North Carolina, which was a number 8 or number 9 seed that year. And I think North Carolina went to the Final Four that year as an 8 seed or 9 seed.
Oh. My son lives in Chapel Hill now, so he's but he's older. He's past college, but he kind of gets into the North Carolina. Ooh, I gotta hate Duke,
Yeah.
But Dave, when you talk about high school, college basketball, particularly, really high school and college basketball, there is a love and a lore that's unmatched. The NBA can't touch it. Your book, one of the great all-time movies, Gene Hackman, Hoosiers.
Yep.
Can you draw the comparisons to really bring it home? Because hopefully most of our audience, and if you haven't seen the movie, see the movie Hoosiers, because it's a love affair for basketball. Paint the picture.
Well, you remember the scene in Hoosiers where they were going, it was when they started winning and they were traveling, they were going on the road and you saw the line of cars following the team bus. Down the road, it was like that in Dover-Foxcroft. And what happened that year, and actually relates to the title of the book, is there was a custodian in Dover-Foxcroft. His name was Neil Johnston, and he was a prankster and also a carpenter. And he got wrapped up with all that was going on with this team. Again, this is the best team they'd had in years. And he decided to make this giant plywood sign, and it was probably about 12 feet long and 6 feet deep. And on the sign, he stuck it in a snowbank on the side of the road on the way from Dover-Foxcroft to Bangor, where the Eastern Maine tournament was being played that year. And the sign read, "The last one out of town, turn out the lights," which was basically a message to everybody else that was going to the game, because the whole community was behind the team. So they're following the team bus, the school bus, and the band was on the bus, all of the boosters and all the students and all of the parents and all of the fans are just going to Bangor. And it was just an incredible experience. And I was fortunate after they won the state championship, Mike, to go back on the team bus to Dover-Foxcroft from Augusta. They won the state championship on a Friday night. They rented a Greyhound bus to go to the game. So they were coming back from Augusta on Saturday morning after winning the state championship. And they had no idea what to expect. And as soon as they get off the Interstate 95, which is in Newport, was the exit, which is where Cooper Flag is from, there were literally already fans with signs cheering them coming off the interstate 27 miles from Dover-Foxcroft. And then they go into Corinna's a really small town. Then Dexter's a really small town. And all of a sudden, as they've got a police and fire station escort through those small towns all the way to Dover-Foxcroft, and they come into Dover-Foxcroft, and it's fans are on both sides of the street. They're coming out of it's like the scene in Remember the Titans when they were going to the state championship, where the fans are literally coming out of the house. And we're talking about in the middle of winter. It had just started snowing when the team bus got there, and they're coming out and waving and cheering, and you go to the gymnasium and it's packed and the band's playing there, and just everybody's in such a great mood, and it's such a connectivity to the community with this championship and what it brought to everybody. And now, even talking about it 50 years later,
amazing.
It's just amazing.
Dave, hold on. We got to cut to our break. Okay, really quickly. Okay. What % of the human brain is water? Now, if the question was liquid, I'd say mine's formaldehyde, but that doesn't count. Okay, what % of the human brain is water? Stay with us. Sports. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with Mike McDowd, Russell Jackman, and Dave Albee, our special guest. Second trivia question: what % of the human brain is water? We'll give you a range here if you want.
I'll say 80%.
You know what? That's that's right. It's 73 to 85%.
Yeah,
and
so right in the middle.
That's right. Darn good there, Russell. Like that.
Okay,
well,
so
I'm going to take it up 2%.
Yeah.
The body is about 80% water. So why wouldn't the brain be?
Wait, say that again?
The body is about 80% water. So why wouldn't the brain be as well?
Yeah.
Like I said, mine's formaldehyde. But okay, so Dave, let's promote your book. You got a famous book there that you want to.
Yeah, this is what it's
just
called.
wrote?
The last one out of town turned to light. So that was the reason that sign was. I talked to about 40 to 50 different people, and I swear to God that pretty much everybody, when I started talking about, remembers that sign. So to me, it became the obvious title for the book. I mean, if you go into a bookstore, most books have 1, 2, or 3 words.
Yeah.
My book's got 10 for the title. So,
Yeah, it's sort of like Field of Dreams too, with
yeah.
the kind of cars type of
Yeah.
thing. There.
Show that
Okay.
cover again, Dave. Bring that book up one more time. Bring it a little closer. There it is. Look at that. That's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean that.
I like that.
I mean
That's
a
the
book.
team that was
There you
taking
go.
out
There you go.
That's Kevin Nelson
that
kneeling on the
screams
basketball.
basketball Americana. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
you
And
cannot recreate those days. You know, those
No.
are
Is it
No.
available on
that's
Amazon?
magic. You know, it's like any one of us playing Little League baseball. You just can't create it.
Oh, hold on, Russ, you were trying to ask a question about what?
Yeah,
where
I
you
just want to know, is it available on Amazon, and is there an
Yes,
e-version?
you can get it. Yes, Russ, you can get it on Amazon. The best way, I think, to you can go this. It's hard to say what bookstore it's in now, but Amazon definitely has. You can actually go to the. I created a book website for it. www.thelastOneOutOfTown.com. If you go on there, it actually has 4 different places you can buy the book from, and it's got a history of the team, a summary of the book, information about me. It's got about 70 old-time photos. If you scroll down, there's a photo gallery with old-time photos from the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, and some of the old-time gymnasiums that they played in. And it's a good looking website if you want to go. If you like
It's good that the
nostalgia,
website doesn't have all the whole title, and that would have been a
yeah,
little tough.
exactly. If you
Well,
like
Russ is a big
nostalgia, it's there. In
basketball
fact, the photo of the photo of the sign itself is in that book, in that photo gallery.
Cool.
Fun. Okay, so let's talk. We're coming up to the final 4 here. By the time the show airs, it'll be down. It'll whittle down.
Yeah.
What do you? Any predictions? Who do you think?
Oh, you're asking me. I've had a couple of good weeks. I think this, and Mike, you can jump in on this too. I thought this was one of the easiest brackets to pick because it was pretty obvious who the 4 top teams were to begin with. And I thought Michigan State might squeeze in and beat Auburn. That was the only upset I had. I got the other 3 teams I picked. I like Houston over Duke. I'm a big Cooper Flag fan, but I think it's Houston's year. The Final Four's in San Antonio. I think that counts something with Houston being fairly close by. I had picked Michigan State to be in the championship game. I missed that. Florida Auburn, I think it's going to be incredible games. Both games are going to be incredible games. I think that's the most exciting thing. We don't have any mismatches here. There's no Cinderellas. It's the four teams that pretty much everybody thought it would be there. That the 4, big dogs, the 4 horses. They're there.
Okay, Russ, who do you think? Because you're a big basketball
I
fan.
picked Auburn, and I see nothing to deter me from staying with that pick. They look super strong. They've already had tough competition in the previous rounds and handled them pretty easily. And but I think it's going to be Auburn against Duke. I think usually the best player in college usually gets the finals. Whether they win it or not, that's still to be a question. But I think there's no doubt about it that Cooper Flag is going to be the number 1 overall draft pick in the NBA, and he's probably the most talented and most physically able player in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll throw my hat in for Florida, just because Mike's from Florida now.
Well,
he's not far. Gainesville.
I mean, look.
Okay,
look I think I mean, look. I don't like them, and I'm going to say this, and I like Houston too. But anytime you beat a number 2 ranked team, Alabama, by 20, I mean, Duke right now is playing the best basketball. I'm sorry, you beat a team by 20. I mean, I did not expect that at all. So I think Duke's got the depth, the talent. But Kelvin Sampson at Houston.
That's it, Mike.
I think America'd like to see them win because we're tired of Duke. I mean, it's the same old. It's the Blue Bloods. It's the same old Blue Bloods, basically. Florida, Auburn. I mean, look at what Bruce Pearl's done at Auburn. He's made basketball relevant there in football country.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of stories here, but who's going to win this thing? I mean, it's going to be interesting. But these are blue blood teams, in my opinion.
I'm an old timer, and I'm a Calvin Sampson fan. So it's you look at the coaches, think which one deserves to win it. And I think Calvin, we can remember Mike. We go back. He was coach at Washington State. When I remember him, he's bounced around the country. But in Houston, this might maybe make up for the Phi Slamma Jamma group that didn't win it. He's got a team.
Do we have all four of us think a different team's going to win? Do all four of us think?
I've got Houston winning. We all have 4 different teams, right?
And you have 4. And Edward has Florida. I have Auburn, and Mike has Duke. So someone's going to be wrong, and one of us.
Someone's going to be right. Okay. Hey, are you guys ready for our silly joke of the week? Every once in a while, we gotta do this. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Okay. So a policeman was interviewing 3 blondes who were training to become detectives. To test their skills in recognizing a suspect, he showed the first blonde a picture for 5 seconds, and then he hides it. This is your suspect. How would you recognize him? The first blonde says, that's easy. We'll catch him fast because he only has one eye. And the policeman says, well, that's because his picture, it's a side profile. Slightly flustered by this response, he flashes the same picture for 5 seconds at the second blonde and asks her, this is your suspect. How would you recognize him? Blonde says, oh, that'd be easy to catch because he only has one ear. Policeman angrily responds, what's the matter with you two? Of course he has one eye and one ear showing because it's a picture of his side profile. Extremely frustrated, he shows a picture to the third blonde. This is your suspect. How would you recognize him? He quickly adds, now think hard before you give me a stupid answer. Blonde looks at the picture intently for a moment and says, the suspect wears contact lenses. The policeman is surprised and speechless because he really doesn't know for himself. And he goes back, he says, that's interesting. He goes, hold on, I'm going to go check the file here. Comes back, he says, oh my gosh, that's true. The suspect does wear contact lenses. How are you able to make such an astute observation? That's easy, the blonde replied. He can't wear glasses because he only has one eye and one ear. Oh, man. I tell you, each week they get a little stupider with the jokes, right?
Yeah.
My
wife is blonde.
Are we okay? Are we okay on time, Edward?
Many years ago.
Yeah, we got a little time. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, quick question. I keep harping on it, and I don't know. I know Russell's heard me say it, but if you'll notice all these Final Four teams, except for the women's category, not one team is from the West. UCLA women is the only. Yeah. What the heck is happening to, first of all, college football, college basketball? The shift has absolutely gone to the South. It seems like our best players in the West leave. They don't stick around to play in the West any longer. Any quick thoughts on that? Because I'm so, as you know, when you leave California or wherever, they look down on us and say, you boys don't play ball. You're a bunch of blah, blah, blah. And, at one point, the West was the dominant sports collegiate force. Any thoughts on
what
that?
What happened to UCLA?
Yeah.
That's sort of what happened to UCLA, because it was tilted this way for years when UCLA was winning. And then I think when the Big East started and all the conferences now are on the power conferences or west or east of the Mississippi. So the whole country's tilted that way now. And that's where they're getting the most publicity. That's where they're getting the most TV. The time zone has a lot to do with it. I really do think that, because people aren't going to stay up and watch the West Coast games at 10 o'clock at night back east. So these kids want to get on TV, and people want to watch the games on TV, and they're going to do it in prime time. That has something to do with it. I got to believe that. Plus, I would imagine there's a lot of money back that way too. That's luring them that way. So.
But the allure of Hollywood, UCLA, USC. You
would think so, yeah.
You would think so, but it doesn't. It's certainly not translating.
It's differently from the days of Steve Lavin at UCLA and Pete Carroll at USC.
Yeah,
those are the glamour days. Yeah.
What about the Cal? The Cal Golden Bears, Edward? When's the last time they've had a good team in basketball? Boy, Jason did pretty much.
That was when Ben Braun was coaching the team.
I mean, football.
And if you're going to say football, I say Joe Cap.
Yeah, right.
Well, they had Aaron Rodgers. He's pretty good too, Cal.
That's true.
Uh,
That's
I mean,
So,
the Bears
With Aaron,
haven't won a Rose Bowl since I think 39, 30, something like
that
that.
sounds right. Yeah, it's been
That's
a long time.
unbelievable. That's unbelievable. I get
Yeah.
fired up by it. I grew up as a Cal fan, and then that's
The
all I gotta
Rose Bowl,
say.
the Rose Bowl is the only bowl sort of still standing too, except it's
And-
not Big Ten, Pac-10
I still
anymore.
remember Jim Plunkett when he had in for Stanford.
Yep.
I think
Mhm.
1970, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he got first draft at the Boston Patriots.
Yeah.
What a terrible team that was back then.
Yeah. Yeah, I would screw up with that team.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I mean,
Yeah,
Stanford won the Rose Bowl again after that, though. Besides Plunkett, they've been there a couple times. Cal hasn't even sniffed a Rose pedal.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
Tyrone Willingham took a Stanford team down to the Rose Bowl.
yeah. I mean, I mean, you look at Oregon, the Ducks. They haven't won a national title despite all that Nike money.
Yeah.
When are they going to win a title? So
Hey, can before we go to break, I just want to add one quick thing here because we are, all Warrior fans. So, holy smokes, Jimmy Butler joins the team and turns the season around, don't you think? I mean, what a spark.
I told everybody so. Nobody was listening to me, but I said he would.
I said the same thing. As soon as they said they were going to get Jimmy Butler, I just said, yeah.
I'm probably in Russ's camp on this. What do they got to lose?
Yeah.
Sort of the way I approached it is that,
Well,
you're going to get
first
motivated.
choice.
You're going to get a motivated player.
Yeah, but think about how he was not the first choice of the Warriors. They went
Exactly.
They were
Yeah.
looking for just about everyone else, and they got quote unquote stuck with
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler. And he's really been. But the thing is, his ability to be effective is directly proportional to the amount of time he can spend on the floor with the A unit. I mean, when Curry is there and when Draymond's there, he really fits in great. But when it's the backup guys and it's Podziemski and it's Moses Moody starting, they weren't able to beat some of the weaker teams in when they were back east in Atlanta. And I forgot the other one they dropped, the second one too. Yeah, but hey, they're gonna play Memphis in like half an hour, under half an hour here. So
all right, hey guys, let's get to our last break here. What is the most affordable state to live in? All right,
Most affordable?
the most affordable state to live in.
I think I know that.
And it's not the state of confusion either. All right.
Oh darn!
The United States. Huh? They're going to talk about the United States. All right.
State of Catatonia.
Hold on. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back with some close. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowell, Russell Jackman, our special guest, Dave Albee. What is the most affordable state to live in? Go ahead, Mike.
South Dakota.
No.
I'll
I'd
say
say
Texas.
Nevada.
Texas, no. Nevada, no. Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
And it's just got that much more affordable because they just eliminated their income tax.
Nice.
Not bad. Right, not bad.
I'm moving to
All right,
Cleveland, Mississippi, baby.
Yeah.
Over
Dave,
Dixie State.
We have a minute to go, and you want
You're
to
going to give up the ocean, Mike.
Go ahead, Dave. You want to make a comment about the A's before we have to cut out? Go ahead.
Well, it's good to see that Darth Vader took his team up from Oakland to Sacramento when they got whipped pretty bad last night. I just feel so bad for A's fans. I mean, and then he moves the team. Darth Vader moves the team to Sacramento, and then he starts spending money to take care of the players. Why didn't he do that in Oakland?
Dave, I don't think it's fair to compare Fisher to Darth Vader. Darth Vader was a very successful emperor who was able to conquer planets and build a Death Star. I mean, Fisher can't even build a park in Las Vegas. So please, don't lower Darth Vader to Fisher's level. Thank you.
Okay, guys, here's our thoughts for the day. All right, so being a little older, I am very fortunate to have someone call and check on me every day. He's from India and he's very concerned about my car warranty. I like that. And I'm so sick and tired of my friends who can't handle their alcohol. Last night they dropped me 3 times while carrying me to my car.
What's different when it's wrapped in that package?
That's a good one.
All on that one.
You'll
All
be
right,
here all
audience.
week.
All right, audience, tune in next
Good
week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Great job, Dave.
Adios.
Right.
So long.
Good job, guys. That was fun.
Yeah.